over to Andy.
So today the focus is on all things organization. So whether that's structure, size, types of organization makeup, and it is the last of our autumn series. So 13 now we've done. We'll be doing more next year, so we'll let you know what we're doing and when we're doing them next year. If you could keep going, skip this slide, and just go back to the previous one just for a second. So with every one of the 12 dimensions, you can make a difference to your growth, your sales effectiveness, and the impact on the bottom line. Some are enablers. Organization can have a direct impact, whether that's getting the right focus in terms of hunting versus farming, for example, whether it's having the right structure with potentially fewer layers, wider spans of control, whether it's having certain other personnel in the organization like sales ops that can make a difference. So we'll touch on each of those in the coming slides, and I'll hand over now to Marek.
Hey, I'm just going to start by asking, we're a small group, so do shout out, and you're welcome to write stuff into the chat as well, but please just do shout out. So, looking at these three teams, question is, what makes a good team? Why? Now, are the people in the Big Brother house a good team? Yes, no, any thoughts?
Well, again, I guess yes, they are. Because they might be a lot of skullduggery taking place, but they're playing a game, aren't they? So they're working with each other to an end objective, which might be executing other people as they depart the game.
Yeah.
But they are working towards an end goal, to achieve an end goal.
Okay, that's a point of view. And a primary school football team, is that a good team?
Well, depends on the age. Sorry, Jeremy, go on.
No, please.
I was going to say, it depends on what age we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly, Katrina. I mean, I guess from my perspective, is it a good team? Well, it's probably good given where they are in their life, but is it good compared to, an international football team or a top class Premiership football team or other football team playing in top level sports? Probably not.
Okay, and how about a Formula One team?
And do you mean, Marek, the Formula One garage behind it, like Mercedes and that team? Because then I would argue, yes, that's a good, well-oiled team. Or do you mean the different ones?
Well, see, that's a very interesting point, because it's very different. The two drivers are trying to kill each other, right? But but everyone in the garage is actually trying to help them to do as well as possible. So let me put forward this perspective, right? The people in the Big Brother house don't have a common objective. They do have a common objective, and that's for themselves to win. But as a team, there is no common objective for the team to win. Okay, so they're just fighting each other. Primary school football team do have a common objective. The common objective is to put the ball in the goal. But what they're lacking are clear roles and responsibilities. Okay, they're all running, again, good point, doesn't matter, it depends what age they are, but primary school, and unless this is, Manchester City Academy or something like that, they're all running after the ball. Formula One team has got both common purpose and clear roles and responsibilities. Okay, they obviously need their driver, they need the car to survive the full race. They need a driver to be able to go around as fast as possible. One guy jacks up the car, another one puts takes the wheel off, another one's putting petrol in, all that kind of thing. And if we think about where we've seen teams operate or not operate, we assemble a whole bunch of people and we say, yeah, there we go, you're working together. And very often what you do lack are the clear roles and responsibilities and the common purpose. People think they're working to a common purpose, but they're not. They could end up all being working to different ones. And I think this is just a bit of a, you know, a health check of what we just often see. I'm not talking about sport or anything like that, just in our jobs. So based on that, just want to ask you as well, here's a matrix. Along the bottom, you know, we've got sales management, sales managers. You know, on the left, poor ones, on the right, excellent. And then on the y-axis, you've got sales reps, so reps, account managers, whatever's appropriate to your business. The sales team, again, from poor to excellent. I'd be interested to get your perspectives on where you think you sit. Do you sit as an organization in the top right, where you've got both excellent sales managers and excellent sales people? Are you on the bottom left, where they're both poor? Are you somewhere in the middle? Mix of both? You know, do you have poor reps, great managers, or vice versa? And why? The most important thing also is why. I'd just be interested to hear from the room, really.
Or an example from a past role where you've had that.
Ali, what's your view on your organization?
We're pretty poor at the moment, but not because we're poor as in sort of inherently poor. It's just that we're sort of at the very, very beginning of our journey. So we're really trying to carve out who does what and roles and responsibilities, which is very exciting, but it doesn't mean to say we actually sit on the spectrum particularly comfortably.
And is that both for your sales management and your sort of sales team, sales reps?
Yeah. I mean, basically, it's been up until now, the company has been sort of led on a very sort of fluid basis of people having individual roles and nobody really necessarily communicating amongst each other. So now we're actually just putting a sales role in, and so everybody else now needs to have fully defined roles underneath that so that we can actually perform. And actually support that sales role. So we have the right marketing in place, the right lead gen campaigns, all of that kind of stuff. So it's all, really good. Okay.
So you're moving towards the top right, but there's a bunch of things you need to put in place, right?
Yeah, a load of things, yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Jeremy, any thoughts?
Ooh, I've been rolling around this box in the last 2 or 3 minutes. I'm not going to punt in the middle because that would be a cop-out, I think. I think sales management, we're probably in the mid-tier of this quadrant C. And I say that because we don't really have a sales execution process end to end from capture pursuit to order conversion. I think on sales reps, if I think more around, we've got folks doing business development work in the field. Yeah, they do a decent job, a reasonable job. So they're probably in the lower quartile of quadrant A. But again, it's not a systematic approach that we adopt. It's not a targeted approach or an objective-driven approach. And we probably, as an organization, don't share knowledge and intel around our clients and customers in the best possible way either. So we're losing opportunities.
Yeah. And the interesting thing with that is that, you know, you can hire good people, but you're talking about some of these ways of working in the processes that are more organization-wide. A group of good people won't necessarily all then end up following the same process unless someone is putting that process in. I'll just share. So we're going to get into a bunch of those things, and as Andy mentioned earlier, the way we think about organization design is all the way from, well, what are you trying to achieve, right? It's not just about hiring a bunch of people, but what you know, I've written here is opportunity strategy. What is it that the organization wants to achieve? And I've sort of beaten this drum a little bit in previous webinars of incentives and the right customers and all that kind of thing, which is that, you know, everything should be driven from what the company is trying to achieve. You know, are we trying to get a load of big accounts and farm them? Are we after new logos? Are we after new markets? Are we going into, you know, whatever it happens to be? Because then that defines the target customers. We look at the needs of the customers, because our sales teams should reflect those in the way they work, the way they engage, the customer journey, which then defines the activities they do, the skills you need to do them, and then you start forming those activities and skills into roles that work together. Then you decide, how many do I need? How do you best structure them? How do you manage them? How do you deploy them? What territories? You know, all of that kind of good stuff. How do you target? So we try to look quite holistically at organization design. And I think this is true of whether you're hiring a couple of people north and south, you know, and whether you're hiring people, you know, across geographies, across Europe, across the world, because it's all still driven from the same sort of things. The level of detail you go into, and boiling the ocean on sort of the analytics of the team and stuff like that can be different, obviously, but it's the same sort of principles that I think are, you know, it's worth going through, because it then challenges you, and it challenges the team about, are you really getting the right skills and deploying them in the right way? Great. So today we'll focus a little bit on it, because we're not focusing on all of that, but we'll focus a bit on sales management, some roles, and then how to sort of define your structure and size. So just back to this matrix of sort of poor managers versus excellent managers, poor reps versus excellent reps. You know, what I was saying there just a second ago was around the power of a manager on a team. You know, let's say you've got a manager coming in, and they've come in and they've got an excellent team of reps. Look at his smiling face on the top left. You know, they're all fantastic. Another manager comes in, and they've inherited a team that is really not very good. You know, they're demotivated, not performing, all these sort of things. And depending on how good the manager is, so for example, you know, a poor manager can ruin a team. Absolutely. Demotivate them, you know, make bad pricing decisions, implement ways of working that just ruin everything. You know, seen that on many occasions where you've got a decent bunch of people and someone just makes life difficult. And it's not just making life difficult, it's just making a lot of poor strategic decisions. Likewise, an excellent manager can highly motivate a team. And to your point, Jerry, put in ways of working, processes that put rigor in, you know, developing the people, getting them to adhere to things, just standardizing, whatever it is, you know, or freeing people up. So I think a personal point of view is that, you know, depending on the size of the organization, a first line sales manager, or, you know, this could be a sales director or whatever it happens to be, the huge effect on the effectiveness of a sales team. You know,
Can I build on that, Marek?
Please, yeah.
You know, I think often as well, the reasons why, in my experience, sometimes managers are poor, it's not their fault. You know, it's often they've been a great salesperson, but a great salesperson, you know, who's looking after the task doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be great at looking after the people who look after the task. And often it's, you know, here's the keys, good luck, off you go. And the skill set and the requirements are fundamentally different, as we know. And I've seen that. And I think so equipping, you know, and it's a leadership job to equip managers, first line managers, with the skills, you know, and with the attributes to be able to manage effectively. And sometimes that's missing. So it's really not the fault of the manager.
Can be, yeah. It's interesting, in some industries, for like pharma, you don't move up the organization too high unless you've carried a bag. So you have to have been, or you know, you have to either have been some sort of rep or have worked in some sort of capacity like that. Otherwise, you don't reach the real strategic top of the organization. Having said that, the person who carries the bag isn't necessarily the person who does have all of those skills. I mean, I like to use various, you know, sort of examples, and I'm an Aston Villa fan, and we're having a great season at the moment. I don't know if this resonates with anyone in particular, but certainly for me. And, you know, we had Steven Gerrard as a manager, and we were practically being relegated. In came Unai Emery, taking the same team, and now we're in the Champions League, and we beat Bayern Munich, and we're, you know, we're one of the top teams in Europe. Yeah. See if I say that same thing in a year's time. And conversely, you know, if you look back at Manchester United, that was coming to the tail end of an aging team, but Alex Ferguson still managed to drag a league title out. And the day he left, you know, the next season, David Moyes took on that team and they finished 7th, and it's never been the same since. So there's a huge power, but I mean, that's football. So let's think about what generally makes a good manager. And I've got a few things here. So people management is obvious, okay? Motivating, war cries, guiding them, deploying them, all that kind of thing. But there's also other elements to being a manager, which is, it could be customer management, structuring the key accounts, taking ownership, being involved in the sales process, being a key part of the customer engagement. And then even further than that, the business management. So a lot of what BFG do in our 12 dimensions of sales effectiveness, right? So the strategizing, the optimizing, really thinking about the bigger picture and all the operational side of things. And the thing about this is, and as Wayne said, often people are promoted to management from being a rep. There are three things here that are related, but do bring different challenges to that person and to the role. It's a bit of a Superman role, right? It's not many of them. There's one of him, and he's in Metropolis and he's busy, so it can be quite hard to find people. So there's a thought around, well, if these are all important skills, how do we bring them to the organization? I've got one example here. It's a made-up sales organization, but it's illustrative. Where's the best place to put Superman? And here's an example of beneath the CEO is a CCO. This person is a great people manager and has direct reports of the sales and telesales and marketing. He's there to cascade strategy down from the CEO, but he works quite closely with the CEO. Probably owns or has strong relationships with some of the biggest accounts, most strategic accounts. And I've seen this work. I've seen someone come in and do this job amazingly, absolutely amazingly. And the person who did it previously did a rubbish job. And this person completely turned around the organization and made what was an unprofitable part of the global organization into the most profitable part of it. And this part of the organization was Europe, which is lots of different countries, which is always a big challenge compared to the US, which is a huge market, but one market. So it can work, but it's hard to find that sort of skill set. Another example is chopping that skill set into two. So here we've got a sales director, which is line management responsibility. Good people manager, be a good customer manager. And then you've got another role, which is sales, sales strategy ops. Cascading down from the CEO, making sure that, the right strategic imperatives are being communicated down and implemented. The challenge with this one is the dotted line. And I think, as everyone knows, when there's a dotted line, that's the line to ignore. If you're going to ignore one line of reporting, it's the dotted line. So again, it can depend on the person, and I've seen this done brilliantly as well, absolutely brilliantly. It was an ex-CEO of the organization who freely admitted that she was better at the more operational side of things than maybe some of the sort of strategic side, the people, sort of going out into the market and that sort of thing. And so carved out their own role in here, and absolutely fantastic. It was one of those things. I don't know if you've seen Casino, where Robert De Niro goes out into the desert with Joe Pesci, and he says, normally I would my chances of coming back from the desert, I'd say about 90%. At the moment, I think they're about 50%. This was such a respected and feared person that, if people came into a room with her, they didn't know whether they were going to come out with a job. But, but there was also a huge amount of respect because of how brilliant that person was. And they worked really well together. You just had those three pillars of sales management just divided across two people and just worked really well. So it depends. It depends on the structure of the organization, what's right, and whether you get the right people in is a point of view. I don't know if Wayne, Andy, or anyone else on the call wants to share any points of view or examples.
Well, I think certainly, you know, having a sales strategy or sales ops person in alongside when I've been in the sales director role has been really, really powerful. You know, really allowing you to almost running the business with you. Obviously, you are the manager, but you know, driving and funnily enough, often talked about as being a little bit of an attack dog kind of role, but there to drive kind of sales compliance as much as anything, kind of run the machinery of it. Not necessarily the strategy side. I've not experienced that as a peer, but certainly from the operational side, I have, and it's powerful, worth their weight in gold.
Yeah. So we're just going to look a little bit more into the field roles. Just put a little sort of spectrum here of, you know, on the bottom is the engagement, the customer engagement. How are we selling to the customers? From, you know, are we just turning up there, classic rep detailing? You know, is it, you know, are we selling more as a team? Is it a consultative sell? Are we really co-innovating and things like that? And on the other axis, it's what are we selling? So we've got how are we selling it and what are we selling it? Are we just selling a product? Are we tailoring the product? Do we have a portfolio? You know, do we have, you know, services we can add on? Are we in a position where we actually can create a partnership with our customers, where we're in that position of mutual value, where we're actually creating partnerships? And it's simple. I mean, it's just, you know, there's always a spectrum here of what roles we then need. But it's amazing how sometimes we see the wrong role. So we see people who are pretty much, you know, sort of detailing reps, and they've just been given key accounts to manage, for example. They don't have the skills. I mean, you know, it's, you know, people can develop, some people can develop, some people can't. Or you have quite skilled people who are asked to sell quite, you know, simple things to customers. But, you know, on the spectrum, really, you know, when you think about the kind of roles that are required, you know, it goes up from the simple, you know, I've got a product, I'm just going out there and telling people about it, through to more advanced account management, key account management. And, you know, there are many words and many acronyms for these roles, depending on what your company is, but, you know, strategic account managers, global account managers. But I guess the point of this is just thinking about, you know, what's the right way to engage with your customers? Well, how do they want to be engaged? And also, what are you taking to market? Really is what drives the kind of roles you want. And it may well be that you have a whole range of these roles within your company, again, depending on what you're selling. Which kind of brings us on to hunting and farming. And again, you know, hunting, go out, get those new logos, bring that new business in. Farming, account management. And again, it obviously this seems quite obvious, and you know, you get hybrids with this as well, which can be appropriate. But we do often see situations where the company strategy is to get new logos, but what they actually have are people who brought in some business. The company's been sitting on that business very comfortably, and those people feel very little motivation to get the new logos. Or not even a skill set. And all of this ties in with incentives and targeting and all the rest of this. So it is often worth really looking at, you know, what are we trying to achieve as a company? And therefore, you know, it may seem obvious that what roles we want, but we'd just be amazed to see how many places don't have the right people in place. Does that resonate with Ali? I know you're building a team, so you know it's not that you don't have the right people in place. You're developing them into the right, you know, to support your strategy. But I don't know if this is kind of makes you think about what you're trying to build towards.
Yeah, I mean, certainly because none of our clients have ever really been sold to, it's going to be an interesting journey for anybody to be on the receiving end of somebody selling or basically hunting. in that role with revenue by design. But so I'm kind of like, I'm fascinated to see how that's going to go down. I'm just not a particularly good salesperson myself, so I just find that quite uncomfortable. So
well, Ali, you're doing yourself a tremendous disservice because you've built up from scratch a very viable business. So we don't need to agree with you there, I'm afraid. But
fair enough. Okay.
It's an interesting perspective though you've got there, Ali. I mean, I think about in some previous roles I've had where we've transformed business from being very operational led into being very sales focused. But the gap between that time frame and two perspectives, maybe 5 to 10 years, but involves some really serious, deep psychological and emotional and skills, competency reviews and analysis of individuals and people. Because from my experience, I think generally speaking, on the hunter side, the hunter folks, and I don't agree with the hybrid thing. I think it's a really challenge to do that. The hunters have got a really different kind of skill set, demeanor, capability, knowledge, behavior, and psychological profile than a farmer does. Or they're just two extremes. Farmers, great relationship builders. They can think long term. They're often great strategists as well. They're good people. They can focus around the objectives for jam today, but they're always looking for the future. And they're thinking about win-win situations. Whereas in the hunting world, it is about that logo driver, and it's a different kind of person. And I also think that if you think about pursuit and capture planning, again, that's another specialist individual role that is neither sales nor key account management. The capture and pursuit people tend to be maybe in the box that Marek, you put on 3 or 4 slides ago. That's that strategist role. You know, that person on there, that sales strat ops, is an individual that's looking at capture and pursuit planning to bring in that logo, to bring in that new customer that meets the business strategic objectives and the needs of the stakeholders and or investors. So I think you've kind of got three pots of folks, and inside those pots are different people as well. But for me, I mean, that's a lot about profiling individuals and profiling the skill sets and understanding the way they like to communicate and the way they don't want to communicate. And some people are great at strategy, some people are great at selling inside a pitching environment, but they're not good at networking or going into a room and meeting 50 new people and getting 50 business cards. It's just not their scene. Some people are really good at that, but they can't talk the job in the pitch. So,
and your legacy regional directors are very much farmers, and they've had, and I know you're in the process of changing this, but they've had the new business development remit as well, which hasn't always been a strength of theirs, or hasn't been matched by their attributes, right?
No, I think exactly that, Andy. In Stonebury, you've got regional directors, and they're wearing 3 hats. They're wearing operational delivery, execution, do everything properly, right quality, right price, right budget, and, you know, delight our clients. They're doing client relationship management to some extent, which actually is quite on the ground, quite tactical in its nature. It's not really strategic in what we do. And then they've got business development, which in Stonebury, we've taken a very top-down approach to our sales targets and our revenue growth targets. That puts an additional pressure on those kind of characters. But we're asking them to do 3 completely separate jobs that require 3 completely different competencies and skill sets. In opinion, I guess, I mean, Stonebury's about a 50-ish million pound business. If we were upwards of 100, 150, 200, we'd probably be able to have individuals that would meet those 3 specific buckets.
Yeah.
But so we've got to, you know, sometimes you've got to make the best of what you've got, haven't you? That's a reality.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So just building on what Wayne had said around sales ops or enablement, we often see a gap here when we go into organizations. We often see that there's a CRM in place. It's not very well adopted. Nobody is jumping up and down either as the evangelist or as the Rottweiler to ensure that people understand how to use it, why it's important to use it, and that it actually gets used properly. So that's a very important role that somebody, sales ops person can fulfill. It may be that there's existing sales team members or marketing team members even that can fulfill that role, but we often see that as a gap. And other things that a sales ops role could include might be data analysis. So, where are we seeing high conversion? Where are we not? Where we're not seeing it, what can we learn from the areas where we are seeing it? There's a lot of data in almost every business, but only a small portion of it gets used for compelling insight. Performance management, so helping to better understand leading and lagging indicators. Market mapping is around what does my prospect landscape look like, both by sector and then within sectors by company, and how do I prioritize them, and how do I ensure that the sales team are therefore going after the right prospects in the right order. And it may be that sales ops person has, from their previous career history, got the right sales and technical skills that they can impart to others, or they could at least facilitate the provision of that skills development. So a number of different roles that sales ops can play. In practice, 1, 2, or more of these 5 might be addressed already by the existing team, but it's very rare that we don't see gaps among some of these and sometimes all of these, and therefore, as long as budget allows, we're advocates of a sales ops or enablement role.
Thanks, Andy. We're just going to look a bit around just some thoughts around structure and size, and what are the things that can drive it. So what we have here are, depending on the company, what you take to market, people structure their teams around different things. It may well be that, there are a couple of key products that a company is producing, and it makes sense to silo structure, whatever you want to say, everyone around those products. Talking sales, marketing, so focus marketing on that product, customer support is dedicated to that product, tech support is dedicated to that product, and that can make sense. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. Sometimes it makes sense to, if you have a few large accounts, to actually structure a certain element of those teams around the customer. So, a dedicated account manager, I've put marketing assistant. It could be an element of your marketing team dedicated to that customer. It may well be that customer service and, or product management, the tech support is then common across the customers. That probably, would probably make sense in this case. But there's a certain element of focus because the customers are big enough. All right, the customers are now big enough. It may make sense by channel. So you've got field sales, so your reps, account managers, whoever you have, all managed together. Telesales is different. Not saying they don't work together, collaborate, but it's structured differently. And then you've got common marketing, common customer service, common tech support, and depending on it could also be geographical drivers. So actually, it makes sense to structure around Europe or US or Asia Pacific, and then there may be local customer service, there may be global customer service, local marketing, global marketing. But again, it depends. I like to say it depends on industry, but it does sometimes. But it's more around what you're taking to market and who your customers are, kind of generally dictates how you're structuring this. Again, if it's a smaller company, this is less relevant. But as you grow, you start to think about how are we going to scale? How are we going to put that next team on? Are we going to, as we expand to a new geography, as we expand to a new customer, as we expand our product range, what do we want to do? How are we just bolting people on, or do we want to just think about what's the best way to take those to go to market? I think Andy's got an example here.
Yeah, so increasingly in software businesses in particular, but in some other industries too, teams are being organized by pods, and a pod will typically have a hunter, a farmer, somebody more operational who looks after customer service or product issues and satisfaction, and then a marketing person dedicated to specific accounts. And they might have pods by size of business or by vertical sector, but it's just food for thought that one can align these four roles into one bucket. The question then becomes, well, where do they report into? And there's different options. You can either have a pod leader and they report into that pod leader, and you might have a dedicated pod lead, so a pod lead reporting into a leader of pods, or it could be reporting into your head of business development, your head of account management. But these are taking root and are an interesting development, I'd say, in sales organization.
Just to summarize, if you're going to think a bit of a sanity checklist when structuring a sales team, I always come back to that strategic focus. Is the team just out there doing stuff, or is it aligned with what the company wants to do, whether it's pushing a specific product line or getting particular specific customers? Does it enable the right expertise? So Andy's example, you had 4 different roles structured in such a way that they are actually enabled, working together, not siloed, to be able to take the right expertise from the company to the customers. Manageability, then it's about spans of control. How does the leadership structure around being able to drive a cross-functional team, things like that? Efficiency, are you flying, where are you flying people from? How big is their territory? Is it is it cost effective to send people here, there, or everywhere? Just things like that, sort of territory management stuff. And then of course we had COVID, so a lot of that then changed, right? Because everyone decided they wanted to work from home and have a different lifestyle. And this is true of customers and and our teams. So all of a sudden there are the challenges of is sitting at home with your dog the right way to bring your expertise or engage with your customers? But actually, is that what the customer wants? So how do you manage that best? If people aren't going to the office, how do you motivate them, cheer them on, train them, all of these sort of things? And this is a realistic challenge, right? We're not living in the same environment that we were 5 years ago. I don't know if you've, Ali, Jeremy, whether you've seen the pressures of this sort of new ways of working.
Well, yeah, I think on 3 levels, you've got a workforce now that almost see it as a way to keep their own personal well-being intact by having flexibility to work where they want to, when they want to, and how they want to, whether that's in the home, whether that's in Starbucks, whether that's in a WeWork facility, or whether it's back in the office. So I think it's forcing a lot of leaders in business, to rethink what workplace actually is. I think that's the first point I would make. The second point is you've got a swell of people now that generally, I feel, think, they don't want to go back to the office. They don't want to do the commute. They don't want to do the drive. which is putting pressure upon business, because in some cases, if you're not in the workplace, then you could be seen to not be collaborating, not be having face-to-face contact, not be having interaction, not be enjoying the joy of being with other people to solve problems. And I think from a sales perspective and my point of view, I feel sales, business development, marketing, we're hands-on people. We're folks with lots of energy. We want to be talking to clients. We want to be talking to customers. We're solution orientated. I feel that we've got to be in the field doing things. So I think what I'm trying to say is that, it's changed the world, and as leaders, we've got to respect that those changes do exist, and we need to, I think, create an environment where people can thrive to do the best they can, whether that is in the field, at home, working in Starbucks. We've got to have that agile viewpoint about how people work. And agile
work with it, Jeremy, rather than work against it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, go with it. Work with it. I mean, I think about myself personally. I've never had an office for 20 odd years, or a single office. I'm quite an agile worker. I like to go wherever I need to go, and I'm happy to do that. It sort of scratches that itch in my back to go to new places, to go and see people. But equally, I like time at home when I can sit very, very peacefully, very, very quietly, and I can do some reflective work. I can do maybe some training work, do things like what I'm doing today now with you guys, do some budget work. So there's a time and a place for me, and I'm quite happy doing that. But equally, if I couldn't work personally, if I'm home every single day, I would go, well, I'll be too distracted because there's too much I prefer to be doing than doing my work, to be honest. So I've got to get out there and do something.
We'll edit that from the recording, Jeremy, in case Trevor.
For sure, don't be sending that to investors.
Great stuff. Right, I'm just conscious of time. I'm just going to just cover off a few things here around sizing. As I said, if you've got two people north and south, Salesforce sizing isn't isn't the rigorous data-driven approach that it can be. But if you've got more people, you've got bigger geographies and more complexity, it gets more analytical, all sorts of different ways, right? All sorts of different ways, right? And I believe that even if it's 2 people versus 100 people, it's worth thinking about what those people are doing and putting some numbers around them, because it makes you think. It makes you think, can this be done differently? Can this be more efficient? But at the very least, how do you size a team? Look at competition. Sometimes done, often not. What are they doing? Where are they going? What kind of people do they have? How many people do they have? You start using some benchmarks, percentage of revenue. Gives you a bit of an indication of, are you over, under investing? Then you start looking at workload, building up. What does a day look like? What activities need to be done? How much of that needs to be done? And then how much effort? And I'll give you an example of that in a second. Profitable coverage. So you keep adding reps until that last rep is no longer profitable, because for one reason or another there's not enough of a market for them. The customers are less profitable at that point. So it's like pushing this out. You can, there are different ways of calculating that. Promotion response. Again, we're starting to get a little bit sort of here quite analytical this point, but there are benchmarks, right? Now ways of looking at how much activity, how much effort is enough, how much is too little and doesn't trigger a customer to make a decision or do something, go along the buying process, and how much is too much. Where are you losing? Where are you visiting customers for the sake of it, doing types of activity for the sake of it? And there are benchmarks around, there are different sort of responses and things like that. And, typically you might use one way and another, right? Are we roughly correct? Rule of thumb with the percentage of revenue. But the competition are doing something different. Well, let's look at the workload. Let's do that. So you just, triangulate this. Got a simple example here. I'm not going to go through all the numbers, but, how long does it take to do some cold calling, intro meetings, do some research on the customer, organize some demos, do some product customization, contracting, How many prospects do we have that will require that activity, right? How much cold calling? 1,000 prospects, maybe it takes, 0.1 days to do it. What does that lead in terms of number of days? Add it all up, 470 days, at 200 days capacity per FTE. Out of that comes, you know what? I think we probably need 2.5 people, of which two are reps to go out there in the field and half an FTE of telesales, and that's fine. That's one way of looking at it. And then once you start, comparing to the competition, whatever it is, looking at the market differently, you might think, actually, you know what? We might tweak one thing or another a little bit. And if all you get out of this is, you know what, we've worked out that we spend a huge amount of time doing intro meetings that get us nowhere. Tons of time. Why are we doing so much of that? Oh, we've got the wrong person. We're not getting conversion. How can we do this different? Cold calling, why have we got someone, high paid person doing the cold calling when we could get some, telesales people in, or actually telesales people are doing it, but they're ineffective. And I guess the point of this sort of, illustrative example is that once you start digging, you start thinking, and that's it. And whether it's 2 people or 100 people you're looking at, you start thinking, and then helps you get to the right organization, the right capabilities, and the right roles, as well as the right size. And then another point, the phrase carryover, it's used in some situations more than others. Probably, you might not use necessarily the word carryover, but it's the point of it is that when you think about your sales team, the money you're spending on your sales team should be the money, the return should be on the things that they can actually affect. So, if you eat cornflakes every morning and Kellogg's stopped promoting cornflakes, you probably wouldn't switch from cornflakes the next day. As soon as you saw no more adverts for cornflakes, you wouldn't stop eating cornflakes. And it's the same with, recurring revenue. If you've got long-term contracts, people with brand loyalty, you've already got high awareness, people have habits. If you cut your sales team, your sales wouldn't go to zero typically straight away. So there's an element of your sales which are just carryover sales, which you're just going to get. Now, of course, they will tail off. If you stop going out to the market, they will tail off and your company will die, right? And it depends. There are benchmarks on the type of market, maturity of products and things like that. But the point is that the sales teams are there to drive incremental sales. And the more activity you do, the more revenue there should be. But just one word of warning there is, we're talking revenue. Profits tends to drop. So, you can make people busy, but adds no more business. You can make people busy adding business, and that business is unprofitable. So, these are just simple examples. But I guess what we would like to say is that when we do look at organization design, we do try and, as much as possible, think about how we can challenge gut feel, how we can challenge sort of qualitative decision making with quantitative as well. Now, the qualitative and the gut feel is just as important to triangulate it, but we do try and look at this as much as possible from a sort of analytical point of view as well. Great, I think we're nearly there. You've all seen the BFG grade. We do have benchmarks that we are developing. The more of the BFG grade we do, and we've done it with many companies, we start to see trends. Within organization design, the specific areas that most companies struggle with are getting the right balance between account management and new business, and getting the appropriate size. We do find also that organization sort of healthiness does correlate a lot with leadership and culture. If it's good leadership and culture, you often have a well-structured, well-deployed organization, and likewise, if you don't, you don't. Quite frankly, and you've seen this before. Please, if you haven't and you're interested, please do the BFG grade. Welcome any final thoughts. And if we don't have any, my final thought is, I hope everyone has a brilliant Christmas, quite frankly. I hope everyone's as happy as this snowman. Ali, Jeremy, you know, this is the last of our webinar series. We you know, if you have any thoughts on this particular session we just now, or you know, any others that you've seen or anything else, you know, please, you know, we're very, very open to feedback, your thoughts, and you know.
It's all been super helpful from my perspective, really good. And I like the fact that it's been over a certain period of time. So it means that you can like have to keep on engaging, which keeps that flow of thought process going, which has been great.
Appreciate your attendance and your participation. Yeah, your challenges and questions. It's always very helpful.
Very insightful. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Marcin.
Thank you all. And Ali, we'll speak next week. And Jeremy, whenever you're ready to schedule a call, just let us know.
Super. We'll leave that into the new year, but thank you, Andy. I really appreciate it.
Cool.
We'll be back in the new year with more stuff. Watch the space.
Yeah.
Have a great Christmas, everybody. Enjoy your break.
Likewise, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.